just watching a video the other day by Laurie Lai, and she was mentioning that times are changing, or she has the feeling that times are changing. Something kind of different going on. And think about year 2000, and that's when the internet really came online, and then we had stuff like the Twin Towers going down, kind of unbelievable stuff really. And now we all live in an online world, people talking on YouTube and Facebook, and we buy all our goods online. So there's been quite a change since 2000. Some of you might have seen some videos I've done, and there's an old crappy stone statue in my garden, and kind of imbued it with a bit of spooky life. But there's always reasons why we do things, and I'll try and explain what I mean. About the change since the millennium, how everything's become an online phenomenon. We do everything online these days. And funnily enough, I've got a couple of notes with me, because I can never keep stuff in my head, and my English is getting really bad since I've been away from England for so long. But I'm reading a book at the moment by Somerset Maugham, and it's called The Magician, and I think it's written in 1909. I quite like Somerset Maugham's style, and this book's vaguely based on Aleister Crowley, and I never really had any interest in Aleister Crowley. I know bands like Led Zeppelin and used to make a big thing of him, all this secret knowledge and stuff, Order of the Golden Dawn. And when you see pictures of him dressed up in the regalia, in the garb, they look like guys from the really early 1920s black and white silent movies with badly cut clothes on and funny little ceremonial hats, and it just looks funny. Looks daft. And one of his theories, I think it's called Thelema. I'm not positive about that. I'll just have a look at my notes. And yeah, he says there's different kinds of times, aeons, and for example, before Christ was born, it was the age of Isis, and that was when people worshipped goddesses. And then came the paternalistic time, which was after Jesus was born, and that's when people kind of worshipped a father figure. You got Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and all these kind of paternalistic bent religions. You know, listen to what Dad says, because Dad's always right, and if you don't do what Dad says, you're going to get a good belt and a good punishment. So that was the paternalistic way. And then you've got the new age that's happening now after change of the millennium, and that's the age of Horus, and that's when human beings begin to take control of the destiny. So we've gone from goddess worship, paternal worship, father worship, onto worshipping ourselves in a way. So I'm thinking, you might think there's a total nutcase, this Aleister Crowley, and I think in a lot of points he was. But I think there is some worth to some of the stuff he was saying about these ages. And if you think about it now, in the last few years we've got things that have been banned for the last 2,000 paternalistic years are suddenly being allowed, like same-sex marriage, homosexuality. Well, in certain countries that's been regarded now as the norm and not abnormal. And I think that's what Crowley was into as well, so kind of ahead of his time. But yeah, without this paternalistic thing, without Papa there saying everything that we've got to do, this is right and this is wrong, and it's everyone out for themselves. And you see that in the internet, really. You know, there's a kind of a freedom there, but it goes a bit deeper than that. Because like this Aleister Crowley chap, I don't think he was a nice guy at all, really. And one of his sayings was, happiness is for fools and sots. Happiness is for fools and drunkards. And he said, real men crave power, because with power you can control what's happening. And it sounds megalomaniac and crazy, but when you look at the world today, we haven't got the paternalistic guy there anymore telling us what to do. And we can go on the internet and look at people's opinions from all over the world. And you can choose and look on me walking in the woods or somebody walking in the jungle in Indonesia and listen to what they think about the world, and no one will mind you doing it. But this thing about happiness is just for sots and fools, and the real men want power. That makes me think about all these big corporations, and they're happy that we spend all our time on the internet, on Facebook or on YouTube, fooling around, putting up videos. As long as we don't look too deep at what they're doing, which is gathering power to themselves to control the world. And we see it all over the world with this globalism, how power's being concentrated all the time in a fewer hands and fewer companies, and they're really telling everybody what to do. And so I think sometimes some of the stuff we said has got a grain of truth in it. See the mist down there, sort of misting up. I hope I'm not invoking Crowley's ghost here. Yeah, and this thing I was saying about the goddess times, the paternalistic times, and then the time of man. It's a bit like the Oedipus complex thing, you know, the old Oedipus tale from the ancient Greeks taken on by Freud. And, you know, when the child wants to make love to his mother and kill his father. And the classic Freudian things. But it makes me wonder if, like, the history of mankind's not followed on this Freudian trope. As if, you know, at the beginning, ancient times, when people first started learning how to write, they kind of worshipped the mother still in the infancy and believed in the old gods. And then when they started to grow up a bit, and I guess they used to have a lot of love rites with those goddesses too. And then they came along the paternalistic with Muhammad and Jesus and Buddha. All these guys came along and it became more a fatherly thing. And then what's the Oedipus thing says, you want to kill your father. Maybe that's why you get so many wars between these religions. You know, the father of the Muslims, Muhammad, father of the Christians, Jesus or Yahweh, whatever you want to call him. Killing each other, massive wars, which we have done. And yeah, we don't know what the next one's going to be when humans begin to make their own destiny in a way, not being at the so much as at the mercy of the paternal religion and the goddess religion, but more hands-on type things. Like now we're starting to mess about with DNA, and we start to fiddle around with all the basic things that make us what we are, and we start messing with that. And you could take what Alistair Crowley said in that context, that we're starting to mess about with DNA and we're going out of the realm of blind nature and into us tinkering with our future. See what I mean? And genetic crops and just generally becoming more in a way we're becoming more natural because we're like a force of nature then. But yeah, it might be a big mistake, who knows. That's probably a subject for another video. So I started the video about what Laurie Lay was saying about some people are getting a feeling that the times are changing, and perhaps they are. And you never know if it's going to be changing for the better or for the worse. Going into a time when no one knows what could happen, when no one's got all the answers. There is no father figure telling you what's right and wrong. And that seems to be the age we're going into. But, you know, if we all continue to be the sots and the fools, just looking for happiness, those real men who seek power will be having an easy go at it. And it makes me think of what Crowley said about happiness is for fools and sots, real power is for men. That's pretty similar to what O'Brien said in 1984 when he's got Winston Smith on the torture bench. And he's talking about power refining itself, and that's the only thing that's worth anything in the world, is having power over raw power, basically. So everything kind of ties up in a way, and it seems like this whole change, what do they call it, the fin de siècle, since a lot of it seems to start in Paris around the turn of the century into the 20th century. And a lot of it seemed to hang around that bar in Paris, actually, the Select bar. You find out all the people who were hanging around there. There was Picasso and Giacometti, Apollinaris, Ernest Hemingway, Alistair Crowley, James Joyce, all these, Scott Fitzgerald, all these, I won't say prophets, but kind of people who are talking about free thinking, and you know, it's kind of changed things in a little way. And I wonder why it was that particular place, the Select bar in Paris. All this forest here where I'm walking now, this all used to belong to the monks. And that brings you to another story, which is another story totally, that the guy who came here and sort of settled the first abbey and everything, he was an Irish guy. Landlin he was called, and he came here in the 5th century, 6th century, and so all these forests used to be worked by monks who were all kind of based on this Irish fella. So I feel like I'm coming home.